Hello and welcome to VOP this morning. I am Esther Nwachukwu and working with me is Joy Adesua Eromosele.
Good morning,
How are
Esther.
you?
I'm well.
I'm
You
well, it's
look good.
Friday.
Yes. I'm always excited. Fridays are like my best days, best
I
day of the
think
week,
most people
actually.
do. It's just that as journalists, whether it's Friday or Saturday, we have no choice. We definitely have to come to work. But
Exactly.
it's good to look. It's good to look forward to the weekend. All right.
Yeah,
So
sure.
apparently, Nigeria's Great Green Wall Agency says it spent a whopping 81.2 billion naira to plant trees. Absurd, right? Okay. Anyway, thanks to the House of Reps, which made the revelation we may never have known. Plus, thousands missing in Nigeria and many more are likely to still go missing. Now, Amnesty International says it's time for the federal government to rise up to the challenge. These are the conversations that we'll be having this morning on VOP this morning. Meanwhile, on YouTube, we are Voice of the People TV. We'd like you to subscribe, comment, and share. On other social media platforms, we are at VOP TV Live. Now, the House of Representatives Ad Hoc Committee investigating the utilization of ecological funds released to the National Agency for the Great Green Wall says the agency spent 81.2 billion naira to plant 21 million trees in 11 states. The 11 states are Kebbi, Sokoto, Zamfara, Katsina, Kano, Jigar, Bauchi, Gombe, Adamawa, Yobe, and Borno. The investigation is from 2015 to date. Now, joining us virtually to actually talk about this particular topic is Great Imo, a social commentator and a political enthusiast. Great Imo, good morning and welcome to VOP this morning. Kindly
Good
unmute your mic
morning.
so we can hear what you want to say.
Good morning, Esther,
Good
Good
morning,
my dear
Great.
morning.
friend. Um, I think she's a new person. I'm meeting her for some on view. Good morning, our viewers.
Good
My
morning.
pleasure to be here.
All right, good morning, Great. We'd like the
Thank
volume
you.
to be increased a little bit better so we can hear a Great Imo properly. Great, thank you for joining us this morning. Now, the question is 21 billion naira to plant trees. Do you think that's ironical, absurd? What's your take on that particular situation?
Um, I tell you one thing. These have become stolen funds, and the challenge will be that, like many other issues in Nigeria, these probes they we never get to see their final outcome, and usually there are no consequences. We have had probes like this, and my challenge here is that, like every other probe we have had in Nigeria, we may end up um, going through this drama session, and thereafter there will be nothing that comes of it. And this is what gives motivation for many more crimes like this in our society, like we have had in 19. I remember as a young person leaving the secondary school and getting a job. One of the spectacles of those years, I think I was a casual worker with the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture. We used to watch this evening drama or night drama on NTA called Faith Bank Tribunal. Then it has continued over the years. Under the Obasanjo regime, we had this thing, uh, probe, probe. We have had manner of probes, and we have had even privatized probes. The question is, all of these probes, they end up as drama sessions in the National Assembly. And that is why sometimes one is afraid to take the National Assembly very seriously. And but going forward, let me my conclusion is that this actually is a stolen money, because even the states that I mentioned, one of the challenges you have is that there is no way to verify some of these things from the states they've mentioned. But let me dive into what and how globally these things are done. about 4 or 5 years ago, because we put in such an amount of money, it's something billion into planting tree. Uh, it is it's supposed to achieve certain things. It's for mitigation against climate change, for land reclamation, for reversing desert encroachment, especially up north, and at the same time, they should have what they call economic value. But in the case of Nigeria, the details of these things are not noted. I don't know if you're hearing me because I'm not seeing you.
Okay,
But
well, I
this is
think we
how,
can hear you. We can
We
hear
can
you.
hear you.
thank you. Yeah, let me give you a story. Pakistan, about 4 or 5 years ago, planted 1 billion units of tree. And I remember in 2016 at an editorial platform, the editorial board, we hosted a specialist who is into what they call eco trade. Eco trade. And this eco trade, they talk about how trees planting can be dovetailed into an economic activity. So at the global realm, they have what they call carbon trade. Carbon trade means that there are funds that are available for trading in trees planting and growing. Years ago, a country like Pakistan bought into it. At the carbon market, you can earn as much as $3 for planting a tree. I mean, something that Nigeria has spent 81 billion. Let's start by telling Nigerians are not as ignorant. You earn more a tree in the world we are in now based on this carbon trade, because the trees, when you plant them, number one is that you can identify them. You can say the kind of tree they are, because there are different species of tree for whatever reasons. There are ones that are for desert areas. There are the ones that are used for erosion gully mitigation. There are ones that are for various other reasons. But you can identify the kind of tree they are. And you can identify planted before they are planted. You will identify the meters in between the trees and how they are planted. And you don't only plant and walk away, you make contingent plan for what? Monitoring its growth. And then the fourth, in modern times, under carbon trade, trees are tagged. Trees are tagged. So trees have identities. That is what it means. Trees have identities now under this measure, because they are not just a Nigerian thing. It is a United Nations thing. Countries have also done it. For example, in the case of Pakistan, Pakistan planted 1 billion units of tree. Billion units of tree have 10 years maturity age. But they are not just any kind of tree. Trees that also have economic profitability, in the sense that when the log value of each of these trees, as of the time it was evaluated when it matured, is $250. So if a country plants 1 billion tree and it matures, in 10 years, that country is making strategic plan for a foreign earning project that will bring return on investment, very huge return on investment. Let's do the mathematics. If you planted 1 billion units of tree and in 10 years it's going to mature, and the log value per tree is $250, if global inflation rate may change that, but using that rate, in 10 years, when you'll be harvesting these trees for other economic activities, the value of those 1 billion units of tree planted will be 250 billion naira, $250 billion. So even if you consider mortality and survival rate of it, you are able to get even just maybe less than that. A country can make as much as $100 billion, which in this year, you can project that in the next 10 years, we can make $200 billion from tree alone, because the log value per tree will be $250 billion. Now, this is what gets interesting. For a country, an organized sector, and this institution, you can actually apply under the carbon trade this initiative, that you want to plant this tree, and they will give you the money or ask you to use the money, and you'll be repaying when you show the evidence of what is done. This is how far you can go. If, for example, you want to use even the tree planting to exit people out of poverty, you can now hire young people without job, maybe without minimal education, who cannot speak English, because this is just physical job application. You can hire young people, for example, to say, you plant 100 units of tree and I pay you $1 per tree, which can be achieved in 10 days. So you can spread this and say, okay, to make these people you want to use, to leverage them from planting trees and to dovetail them out of poverty, 1,000 units of trees at $1 means $1,000. If a young man gets $1,000 today, he is as rich as 750,000 naira at the official rate. At the black market rate, that is over 900,000. But let's say somebody who have not got.
You have obviously answered the next question we want to ask you, honestly. But we have another interesting question for you.
Yes, please. Good morning. Okay. I was going to ask you this amazing project. I mean, it's a laudable project. You know, growing of trees. It is something that's that is really amazing. However, for it to have gulped this amount of money, do you think this is? I mean, it just happened overnight, because I mean, this has lasted for since 2015. It has lasted for over 8 years or thereabout. Couldn't this agency realize that there were, because it was also noted that there were lots of trees that didn't germinate and all of that. So didn't they figure out that this planting didn't have like a very high success rate in the long run before continuing and just gulping so much amount of monies that could be used for better other pressing issues here in Nigeria?
The problem is that it's not about the mortality of the trees, it's about the embedded corruption. Even before this project started, most of those managers of this project already saw it as their own avenue to steal from Nigeria. That's always the case. I'm not hiding. I'm not going to. Mine was there. For example, what is the mechanism for delivery? You want to plant trees. First and foremost, you need what they call stakeholder involvement. What is the stakeholder involvement? The communities where you are going to plant these trees, you needed some research. You need to do soil sampling. You need to do what they call from lab to field, connection. The trees you are going to plant there must be evidences that they grow. Then for you to go and plant trees, the question is, you are going to plant tree where you are sitting in Abuja, you are going to plant tree in Boronu, and you don't have stakeholder buy-in. If you have stakeholder buy-in, who are they? Because when you have planted these trees, you have walked away. There has to be a contingent plan for monitoring and growth processes. And the only people who can do it are people who live within the community. And that is why when these monies are not dovetailed even into bringing community prosperity, because you don't just plant tree. Part of the engagement is to use these processes for community empowerment by engaging the community dwellers, the leaders of the community, and the youths who are unemployed, who become beneficiaries of this cost. And even the nursery farms where you mature these trees, they have to be within those range, because if the nursery are not within the range, and the trees must also, like we say, must be climate friendly, geographically, climate friendly. For example, the climate in Sokoto is different from the climate in Enugu. The trees you'll be planting, for example, in Anambra, where you have serious gully erosion, are different from the trees you'll be planting in the desert areas of Boronu. Some of these metrics has to be put into consideration. And somebody who says he planted, when did he die? You need to record time. When did you plant? You need to record time. Growth rate you need to record. If show you all these variables,
All
that
right.
means they are lying.
All right. All right, great. Here's another question. Now, in as much as you already mentioned some of the core challenges with the money that was appropriated for the Great Green Wall, about 8.1 million, a billion naira for 21 million trees, across the country. But there are some factors that we need to relate with so we can approximately understand how this was going to be inevitable or possibly the longevity of this project taking place right here in Nigeria. For example, we do know that one of the main issues that the Sahel is actually experiencing is scarcity of water. Second, we're also having a huge challenge with security. The arid regions of the Sahel, where there is, where there is scarcity of water, where there is security challenges, and of course, they're trying to cope with the weather conditions, considering the fact that we have an inconsistent climate, would I say, climate volatility. So when we try to put all this in concept or in context, we now try to look at the reality of the Great Green Wall project taking place in this country. You do know that most northern areas are really battling with not just insecurity, but also access to food. Do you think that if these plants were being put up there, wouldn't the government decide to look for areas through which they can plant food, sustainable food plants, rather than just having to grow green trees?
Okay, the challenge is this. Because of the unique nature of this project, that is why we expected that you don't delve into projects without all the variables on board. You have to have the variables. For example, the challenge with northern Nigeria is desertification, the desert encroachment. And now, considering there are bodies that have made research, UN, United Nations bodies, eco-friendly institutions and NGOs, they have what they call data on all of this, including soil samples and data. You have agencies in Nigeria, including Meteorological Institute and other bodies like that, because you need to interface with them so that before you have to do anything, all these variables, you have them on ground. They will tell you what the climate factors are, the soil factors are, then based on research, the trees that grow up there. Yes, we have issues of, in certain places, economic trees are more sensible to use. In other places, you may not necessarily have an economic tree, but the tree in itself becomes economically valuable because their existence can be evaluated in terms of the health protection, because once the trees are there, number one, it helps to reclaim the land, make the land also more usable. Then it creates shadows for smaller plants and all of those. So what constitutes economic tree in this part of the country may not constitute economic tree on the other side, but in all of them have economic value. For example, when you are measuring values for trees, you don't measure them in terms of whether you can harvest fruit from them. You also measure them in terms of the health protection, because when they reduce greenhouse emission, they add to your value the longevity of the people who live there. And for example, when you plant trees where they're able to stop desert encroachment, it gives access to land for those who are living down below to be able to plant, because the tree protects that desert from encroaching towards the agrarian area. In all of those things, there is economic sense in all of this. So in this tree planting thing, it is not just let's go and plant a tree. You can't spend 8 point something billion or thereabout or whatever an amount of a planting tree without understanding these variables. So, and in answering the question to what you did with the billions that were allocated, these are the answers you will give. With this also research, based on these are the trees that are amenable to this environment, and this is the projected value return on this money we are going to put. This is how we are going to carry it. This is the stakeholder involvement. This is the sustainability factor. All of those things must be put in place before you even shoot out. But what we see these days is that when projects like this come, people sit in the offices in Abuja. They spend money on what they call office sittings and logistics, and on the personnel within their what they call their comfort zone rather than in the field where this money is supposed to be deployed. You notice that people who are being paid salaries, who have allowances for even engaging in some of these extra activities, still dip their hands into these monies to spend, sleeping in hotels, holding meetings, drinking coffees at exorbitant prices, extra costs that are unnecessary, back and forth meetings that bring no result, and at the end of the day, they squander the money on themselves while the project lies fallow. Somebody saying the trees died. Some of them, ask them, at what point did the tree die? They don't have records. They don't have records. Meanwhile, these things are not rocket science. World over, people have done it effectively. And I say it's not just tree for planting trees' sake. You must also record the economic return on investment trees for it to have a motivation and sustainability. Some of these things are not taking cognizance of. I mean, it is just like every other thing in Nigeria. You are even talking about trees. Let me surprise you. One of the reasons why CBN and other agencies of government can never recover money, you know there are cases where Central Bank and other agencies have paid certain people to plant rice. You know what this will come to do? They take these huge loans, they take these monies as loan, disburse it to their friends, use fictitious name to siphon this money, and they wait for the next season. They come back with reports that erosion have carried the flood. In fact, some of them even come to make claims in the Ministry of Agriculture. There are years where Ministry of Agriculture spends as much as 50, 60 billion who claim to have planted rice that were destroyed by erosion. These are the corruptions we are dealing with because there are no consequences for the past actions, and even this happening, we are afraid there may be no consequence because Oga at the top is stealing, so the one down is stealing, the civil servant who is running the civil servant who is running the show is stealing, and the poor Nigerians become the victims of all this stealing and no result and this resultant growth for Nigeria.
All right, great. Thank you very much for that input. I would like to ask this. From this story, I've been able to understand that most of the states or all of the states are northern states. Are we saying that other parts of Nigeria don't need trees, for whatever purpose, And some are even saying on social media that this mismanagement of fund, is really unnecessary because you are getting revenue from other states in Nigeria and using it to fund, projects as, in quotes, ridiculous as the planting of trees. What do you have to say about that?
Like many other things in Nigeria, the Nigeria politics, economy is very tribalized. I bet you that I challenge anybody, I don't know the names of the people who carried out this project. If you go and check their name, most leading characters, they are from northern Nigeria. Quote me. And this is how many other things in Nigeria, but that is very unfortunate. For example, in states like Anambra, Imo, Abia, they are hit badly by gully erosions that are taking economic spaces away from the growing population, which also add to the economic growth of Nigeria, because every part of Nigeria is important. But when these things are done, the people at the head, depending on where they come from, they take it and they personalize it. And they go home, build big houses, do big parties, and tell their people that they have gotten something from the federal. Even the people in their area don't get to become rich because they became, but they will have the big house to show their people. They do marry more wives, do host parties for their people to show them that they've arrived, that they are now they have gotten part of their own share, and the poverty continues, the degradation continues, and that is actually the problem. Now, part of the statement here, the question here is, why money is taken from every part of the country sometimes when they are being deployed, they are partially deployed, tribalized, to the extent that it doesn't go around. This is also a challenge in Nigeria. it is part of what fuels the, because everybody wants to hijack power at the center, because you know that everybody from the rest of Nigeria gets it and you take it to your people or to yourself, and that is what has been happening. And this is part of why the constitution, 1999 constitution, is as irresponsible as anything, because it does not augur well for multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multilingual society like Nigeria. 1963 Republican Constitution actually solved this problem. Even the independent constitution that gave the regions the power to, manage and harness the resources within their region and pay taxes to the center were the best for Nigeria, like in many other countries where we have this kind of configuration. But because many people depend on, oh, you get oil from Niger Delta, everybody share. You have made many parts of Nigeria lazy, waiting for what comes from Niger Delta. Meanwhile, there are other that can make Nigeria great. They are domiciled in other parts of Nigeria, and nobody is doing anything about it. Even as simple thing as agriculture, which has just 9 months, 10 months turnover period. For example, Niger State has over 6,000 square kilometers of land, and Niger State is waiting to get patri maybe 60 billion naira from oil allocation, from oil being taken from Bayelsa State. All these are the inequality and inequilibriums of our country. Meanwhile, that 60 billion is not planned into pushing the Niger State to be free in the foreseeable future by investing in agriculture substantially, so that they also become independent. No arrangements for all these things that will continue to go in this cycle of tribal politics and economic interest.
All right, great. Finally, on this particular segment, I want to ask you this question. Let's look at coordination and scientific collaboration in terms of sharing knowledge. If this agency had this idea, the idea is actually to battle climate change, especially in most of these arid regions, in Nigeria. Not just those arid regions, other states as well, just like Joy had asked you earlier. But when it comes to projects like this, if they had gotten the money from either any of the international communities, definitely the international communities already understand how some certain things work in this part of the world. So they would request that there should be monitoring. They would request for every day or possibly quarterly or monthly reportage of how that money was spent. They want to see videos and pictures of these trees, the process of the trees, how they are putting together community members while they are working in harnessing all this, the planning process, everything about coordination will definitely be put in place. Does it mean that in this part of the world, we do not hold institutions accountable? And when projects like this that has to do with the livelihood of people is put in place or put out there, and money is actually put aside for it, nobody will be asked questions about it, and then they are let to go?
Very much. Very much the case. The case is that let me say this unequivocally. The so-called elites in Nigeria should be ashamed of themselves, because in most countries of the world, the elites are those who govern the society, the economy, and who project and protect the future of a nation. But we have some of the most shameless elites in this country, people who arrive at the top echelon through criminality and other vices you can think of. Hence, they are irresponsible. They live responsible, institutions, and how irresponsible the society they are living has become based on their own history, character, and models. This is what has permeated Nigeria. Even those, if you ask most of those who are supposed to hold these people accountable, they don't have the moral rectitude to do it. And the reasons are obvious. In their own various segments and sectors, they are also liable. I watched a mock video yesterday where somebody said that the Emefiele will eventually be let off hook. And the reason he gave was that there is a story, so it's no longer a story because somebody wrote a petition. If anybody can write a petition and are paying his signature to it, it means it is a valuable thing that he wants to be said, to be quoted, and he can be held liable for what he has claimed. In that petition, Dangote was said to have been given dollar waiver to the tune of $3.6 billion, and not even in trenches, but in a swap, in a first swap. One, in a country, so many production companies that require machine tool spare parts to increase productivity, they were not getting dollar. Then while we were depleting this for reserve, they were giving it to somebody. And most times when you give them this money, you give them based on their toga, they give them based on the person they know in government. And some of these monies they claim they want to use it for so. They just go to the black market and trip it. If you are giving dollar at 250 and at the black market is selling at 550, you are giving an official waiver at 250. The person takes $3 billion, put 500 million, you put all the money in his foreign account, repatriate 3 billion, take it to the black market. For each 1 billion he sells at 550, he makes extra 200 billion. And if you do that for $3 billion, that is about 600 billion. And the next year you call him a successful businessman. That's the kind of shenanigan that is going on here. So when the person who have done it in central bank, who is supposed to, and all those things that are going on in our foreign exchange and accounting in banks, gets involved in those kind of mess, and they tell him that a bank manager of one of these new generation banks have really maybe siphoned people's money, have done round tripping of their own of their own shares, manipulated, cooked their books, arrive at profits that are unimaginable in any country in the world. The man who has done that deal, 3.6 billion, that does not have moral authority to do so. Like this in every other segment of Nigerian society. Many people who hold positions of authority are compromised. You see civil servants, directors whose salaries are 350,000. They live in houses in Abuja that they own that are worth 150 million. Their children are schooling in the UK, in America. It's not that their children shouldn't go to good schools, but by every means and standard, they can't afford it. You go to their houses, sometimes you see cars what accumulative value of 200 million per, and so they have properties everywhere, so they have girlfriends, so they are living large, going on holidays. If you ask, how did they arrive at this point? These are directors who are supposed to hold junior staff accountable. The junior staff goes on and does it. Also, the entire architecture of society is crumbled because the missing link is the moral authority. Then you go to the judiciary and the same thing. So these people cannot be brought to justice. My dear, the Nigerian system is very, very in a big mess. That is why there's no accountability. Even when the UN
you just reiterated the statement that Vice President Kashim Shettima made about 3 days ago when he was speaking with the economic team, of course, headed by Wale Edo, the coordinator minister of the economy and the minister of finance. So I think you just made a very obvious statement as to the current reality in Nigeria. However, I would like you to stay on for the second topic, the next conversation that we're having, which we would like your intellectual input on. All right. So apparently, up next on VOP this morning, issues of missing people shouldn't be taken lightly, but it hardly appears to be the first thing government thinks about when it comes to citizen welfare. That conversation is definitely what we'll be having next.